How much cussing do we do on this podcast?
Do as much as you fucking want.
That's my guy. Let's go, Dean.
Let's fucking go. But here we are. Welcome to my pod, Conversations with DJ. I'm extremely excited to have you. I know we've been talking about this for a little while now, and I'm really, really glad you were able to come down today and get this pod done. So, please introduce yourself.
Well, thanks for having me, DJ. First off, love the pod, love the entrepreneurial spirit. I hear you're like a real estate mogul now of San Diego too, social media mogul.
I dabble.
Crushing it. What's up? I'm Jill Braverman, aka your girl, Jilly B. And I'm pro pickleball player. Used to be CEO of Duper over a year and a half ago. Was one of the first employees at Major League Pickleball as well. I was chief of staff there. And then, like a year and 3 months ago, I was watching MLP Mesa and was like, what am I doing? I can always work in the corporate world. This is like my one chance to like play pro and do it full time. And, my whole family thought I was nuts. So quit my job and here I am playing pro pickleball.
Yeah, which honestly, in my opinion, I would say 2 years ago, it might have been like the best job ever. Right now, it's still the best job ever, but there's a lot of more nuances, right, to it. But I remember back in like 2021, I think it was like a USAPA pickleball tournament. You played with Zane and in Newport, and then I played with Maggie Brasha.
I think about this all the time.
That was such a fun tournament, and I remember seeing a footfall that was like actually crazy. You were walking through the kitchen.
Sounds about right.
And one question that I want to ask you is, at that time, right, the refs and stuff were not very well trained, and you could get away with a lot of different things, right? So, were you doing that on purpose, or did it just happen?
That was like my fourth ever pro pickleball tournament, and I didn't know the reestablish rule.
Okay.
And I thought if you can take a step in the kitchen as long as you land out of it.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Like literally didn't know what reestablish meant. But, I think about that tournament all the time for a different reason. When I first played against you and Maggie, it was like the very first point.
Mm-hmm.
And I sped up at you and you countered and the point was over. And you looked at me and you went,
already?
And you gave me this gnarly finger wag that blew my mind. Cause I'm like coming from tennis, I didn't have like the ethos of pickleball down yet. Mm-hmm. And it like really unsettled me the rest of the match. And Zane and I ended up losing. And I like didn't like you at all after that, until I got to know you and got to know like how fun it can be to have a personality on the court and to like, you're only, 12, 14 feet from each other. It's like, talk some trash. Like, let's have some personality.
Yeah.
So I think about that tournament all the time.
That's so funny. Because that tournament specifically, I was doing the finger wag. I was like growling to people instead of saying like, I'd be like,
I was scared.
Just like talking shit to everybody. But that's crazy. So you played those tournaments, right? Like first 4 or 5, and then you went straight into the like Duper CEO world, right? So what made you want to make that choice?
I was working at a company called Universal Tennis, which a lot of us know by UTR, the tennis rating system, and now they're UTR Sports, and they're getting involved in pickleball. And I had begged them for like 3 years to get involved in pickleball, and they wouldn't do it. And I was kind of dabbling in pro at the time. And that was a big reason I left, was they weren't getting into pickleball. Lo and behold, of course, now they are, and they're the official rating of USA Pickleball and now the APP as well. And Steve Kuhn called me and said, would you consider being CEO of Duper? And I basically said no.
Okay, nice.
No, I'm done with ratings. I'm done with the corporate world. I don't know what I want to do next, but it's neither of those things. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, what if you could really build the rating system of your dreams, what you wanted to do at UTR? I'm giving you a total blank canvas to come and do this. Mm-hmm. And I really thought about it and realized it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so whenever people tell me like, oh, I thought Duper was really accurate like a year and a half, 2 years ago, I really liked Duper then. I'm like, okay, that was me. Everything after that was not me.
Yeah, that was a compliment to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, because obviously I'm really good friends with Steve Kuhn. I don't know if you keep contact with him still, but I try. I really like him as a person. And I think when I look back at it, living in Dreamland 2 years ago, 2021, 2022, being sponsored by Duper and getting to like talk to you, because I remember getting the contract done with you and kind of going through you.
You were like one of our best athletes.
No, I appreciate that.
Thank
you. I tried.
I loved you.
I tried.
Still do.
Thank you. And so I just remember those as like the golden years. I was like living rent free, playing a lot of pickleball, hanging out with Steve Kuhn, all of you guys. You would come to Dreamland all the time. We had the Tuesday pickleball night.
Pickleball night in America.
Yeah. Pickleball night in America. How involved were you with that?
Super. I was basically producing Pickleball Night in America with my wife, Kristen, who was doing consulting work for MLP and Jupiter at the time.
Yeah.
Shout out to K-Dubs. And I think of that time period as well, like all the time, the golden kind of era before there was really a ton of money in the sport. Like kind of a fascinating, fun time.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, there's obviously way more money that right now overall, but 2 years ago, I was still making pretty good money playing, some PPA, some APPs, MLPs, right? When I won when I won my only MLP actually, and I made those $25,000, like that's pretty good. Was a pretty good fucking paycheck.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting at the time. And just kind of in a way, obviously salary is great, but when you get rewarded for like winning a tournament, like there's no other feeling that beats that, in my opinion.
Totally. And, I have to question the motivation of a lot of players right now who are totally salaried on the PPA and MLP tours. And I think we saw this at the last MLP. I mean, you played it, you tell me. People who were performing so poorly, low bottom of the standings, who normally we see playing way better. And like, why is that? Like, are people caring? You see people singles rankings slipping. Like, do they really want to get hurt and grind in these brutal days when they're already getting their monthly paychecks? I just played on the APP last weekend in New York, and it was a major. And you're walking away from this fun event they just created called the Shuffle, which we can talk a little bit more about later. But it's like, I won $2,200 for coming in second place for that. But if you play 12 APPs, they double that. So that's $4,400. Now you have prize money match from your sponsors as well. You get another $1,000 if you made it out of your pool as number one in each of your pools till the championship. In addition to that, you've got the prize money you earned playing the women's doubles and mixed doubles.
Yeah.
So you're walking away from some of these events, especially if you're someone like Megan Fudge, with up to $10,000.
Yeah. Is that before sponsors or after sponsors?
After one sponsor match.
Okay, I gotcha. It's still
After
a
one
really good
sponsor
paycheck,
match.
though. She plays singles, too, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And
like for me, that was a big week. It wasn't $10,000, but it was big.
Still pretty good. I mean, when you think about it, first of all, you're playing pickleball, right? Which is better than a lot of times sitting in a chair like we are right now. But secondly, at the same time, like you're viewing it from like a couple days worth of work. And it's not even days. It's like half days, right? You're like 6 hours, whatever it is, like however long you're playing. And when you look at it from like maybe like an hourly rate, I mean, we're talking about a really high hourly rate.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like $10,000, let's say 13 hours or 14 hours, 2-3 days, like comes out to be a pretty good paycheck.
With minimal expenses as well. And also you can't buy time on, networks. Like I had over an hour on Fox Sports 1, FS1. And cumulatively on the APP this year, I've played 4 tournaments and have had over like 8 to 10 hours of network time on CBS Sports, FS1, ESPN.
Yeah.
So the opportunities are really wild. And right now having my freedom to go play all these different opportunities and tours reminds me of those kind of golden years like you said.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the best thing was that I'm really good friends with Mario.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God. The cornrows, the personality, the finger wagging, the stare downs. Can we talk about that, please?
We have to, right? So I'm really good friends with Mario. And, Mario and I played together back in 2022 a bunch, especially APPs, right? And we won a couple, we lost a couple, right? Kind of like mixed results. But, we're still really good friends. We get along. We text all the time, right? We go to dinners. And just being able to now 2 years later watch him win an APP, in this case, without me, right?
And by the way, last minute sub, because Andre Diascu pulled out on me last minute the night before, and Jack Monroe.
And who was Mario's partner?
He wasn't partnered, so Jack Monroe called him, and he showed up.
That's the best. That's like pickleball at its best, right there, right? It's like last minute partnership. You do really well, you get paid, everyone's happy, you go home. 2022 pickleball days.
Totally.
Yeah, but honestly, shout out to Mario. Good job, bro. I'm super proud of you. I've been texting you nonstop. We need to get together. One thing that, we're kind of touching on before that I want to talk about is, obviously a lot of us playing in a lot of these same tours, right? MLP, PPA, PP, whatever we're doing, and kind of like trying to achieve a lot of the same things, even though we're friends, we're comrades, right? But at the same time, we're like competing against each other, right?
And competing for small sponsorship pools of entities that are, believing in the sport. How many are there? 50?
Yeah.
50 companies right now putting money in the sport? 100?
There's not a lot of them, right? And you're right. And where I wanted to go with that is, what are your thoughts, right? What can someone do to basically up their chances to getting some of that sponsorship money? And the follow-up question to that would be, what are some of the things that people are doing to do so?
Yeah. I advise a lot of players on this exact topic. Obviously, I love creating. I love social media. Everything I do, I think, is similar to you, where it's like 100% homegrown. I don't have an agency doing any of my stuff. And I think that ends up showing through in your personality online. Right. And people can see like, wow, these like social media posts from a lot of these players look identical to each other. Well, it's because it's the same like 3-person team who's doing it for like over 30 players.
Yeah.
And so my advice for a player would be authentic, be creative, be different, and show engagement. Like you and I have talked a little bit about this, engagement calculators. It's easy to look at someone who has a following, I don't know if you want to name names, of 100,000, on Instagram. It's like, okay, but what's the actual engagement there? Are they buying followers? Like, definitely don't do that. And like invest in alternative media. Like TikTok is huge. I think people underestimate TikTok. I think YouTube is probably the biggest avenue. So we get a little fixated on like Instagram, and there's this enormous world outside of that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I would agree. I mean, first and foremost, right, like I invest most of my money, right, whether it's a little bit into real estate, whether I want to grow my brand, right, like marketing, whatever it is. That said, right, when it comes to sponsorship itself, like there's a lot of us competing for a very small pool of sponsorships, right? So I do believe, and I don't have the numbers. The numbers I kind of do actually to some extent, but I don't have like actual proof of people, like for example, buying followers. But I feel like if you can use sort of your self-judgment, you can maybe try to like,
look at the views.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the views, whatever it is. And so when you're doing something like us, in our case, right, where you're investing all this money into trying to grow your brand and hire a marketing team, whatever it is, like Nick does a lot of stuff for me, right? And he gets a good paycheck. Then you should see somebody like buy that as like bots or fake followers or whatever. It kind of hurts a little bit, right? Because when sponsors are looking at, okay, who has the biggest following, right? Who's going to see my product the most? And then they look at followers and they're like, oh, this guy has like 50,000. And it's like, but does he really, right? And I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Like, in my opinion, I think the best way you can do it is grow organically and see what happens from there. And I think in our case, when it comes to like personality and who we are as people, we're in the long term, we're going to end up winning.
Yes.
Where they're kind of winning now in the short term.
I could not agree more. And I think if someone has 100,000 plus followers, which is more than the PPA, MLP, and APP tour combined, and their engagement on their reels is less than like 25,000, I think we've got a little bit of a mismatch there. Not naming names.
No, we're not naming names.
Just asking questions.
Yeah, that is true. Well, to follow up too, I know. So I didn't play this last MLP because my team wasn't, I guess, scheduled to play or whatever.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Okay.
But what are your thoughts on somebody like Jaume? Right, you play with Jaume, you get along with Jaume really well, and so do I. Right,
I birthed Jaume. I birthed that man.
We
picked him up out of obscurity, drafted him to the Hustlers, and then in real time was like, yeah, drop it cross court and then earn it. He's like, okay, and like goes and executes to perfection. Like he's like learning on the fly.
I know, he's the man. He the way he like learns and just executes and kind of does everything on the spot is so good, right? Roscoe and I had a really good, funny conversation. We were talking about, if two pickleball people had a baby, what would that baby look like? And we came to the conclusion that if Alex Strong and Hayden Patrick had a baby, it would look just like Jaume and play just like Jaume. So we thought that was kind of funny. But I know you didn't apply to get drafted, right?
Right.
Do you miss playing MLP?
Of course. I mean, I was born to be on a team. People think probably like I'm a difficult personality to have on a team. They probably think like, oh, like really, like Zane said it on his podcast, when Jill's on the court, Jill's the boss, whether it's like mixed doubles or gender doubles, which is funny. Like I don't feel that way, but I think I give that off when really like my whole life has been in the corporate world building teams. And I think that's my specialty, is being a chameleon on a team. It's like, what does the team need, right? Yeah. So when I played MLP season 1 with Brandon French and De La Rosa and Krista Getchva, like, what does Krista need to play her best? What does French need? Like, I was so chirpy that first MLP in Miami because like French wanted that, right? And then you look at when I won it with Ben Newell the next event, I wasn't really that just super calm. That's what Ben needed, right? So do I miss it? I miss it like crazy. Absolutely. I mean, it physically like hurts not to play it. At the same time, I think the production quality was lacking, would be like a nice way of putting it, from the last MLP. I can't imagine being the Texas Ranchers who spent $900,000 to be in Premier and their first match isn't streamed. And like the players are having to stream it on Instagram Live. So I think, I'm not convinced that Dundon and the PPA just don't want to kill MLP. I'm just not convinced of that with what I just saw.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the future holds for PPM and MLP. I hope we all get to keep playing pickleball, right? And I mean, then again, I think it's the most fun job in the world, right? And I love MLP. Like, when I thought of like MLP itself and when Steve Kuhn was around, right? It's like, dude, this is like amazing. Like, this is like the best form of pickleball there is.
Wasn't the production quality, and this is what makes it so painful, wasn't it incredible? The first season, and we had mic'd up players and replay with 6 different camera angles, and we had a camera running, remember, at like really high up.
Yeah, I do remember. Yeah. My only thing is, at that point, I wonder if it was too much to sustain, right? Like, it's just so expensive to get all that done, especially, I'm sure, like, the Spencer Laurent, right? The guy that would do the Pickleball Night in America, right? Yeah. Tuesday night. Like, him and I are friends, and so everything that he was doing, even as a one-person job, like all of that is so expensive. The equipment, just having him there, the trailer, the cameras, like, I just think it's a lot. And so I wonder if by doing so, and when Steve was, doing what he was doing, even though he did a great job, if it was kind of like, just too much.
I think you're totally right, but I think in the past couple of years, those streaming costs have gone down drastically. A lot of those costs are really one-time sunken costs. And what doesn't make sense to me is the PPA should own a lot of that equipment already. The production quality of the PPA events wasn't as bad as MLP was. Isn't it the same equipment? Isn't it the same team producing it?
Probably different budgeting though, right?
Apparently.
Yeah. And do you know how much Tennis Channel is involved? Because I don't, right? Because if it's the same company running it, then they got to have a different budget for either PPN and MLP, and that's why it didn't look as good.
I think you're spot on. One rumor I had heard was, the PPA has a certain allotment, a certain number of days from the Tennis Channel, which include, great production quality, and they don't want to allot those to MLP. Okay,
interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Well, hopefully it gets fixed. I don't know what the right answer is, but I didn't think when center court was being streamed, I didn't think it was bad. It wasn't the same, I will say, right? Because like when you're watching like 2023 or 2022 MLP, it kind of looks like a documentary. It just looks great, right? Like something happens, like the shot goes into the crowd and it comes back, and there's all these things going on. So hopefully it'll get to that at some point, even if it's with PPA as well.
Okay, tell me if I'm crazy. I think pickleball is borderline boring to watch, and I am obsessed with it. Like all day long, I can watch pickleball. Yeah. And the magic, especially of something like MLP, and the personalities and being so close to each other, and the trash talking and the sideline commentary and the strategy discussions, it doesn't translate. No, it's like, am I watching tennis? What am I watching? Are we just trying to reproduce tennis? Do you ever feel that way?
I do feel that way, right? And I think that's where, what we're talking about like a year ago, it just looked so good because they were able to bring the energy that was happening on center court, onto the screen, and I don't think the streams right now, even if it's like APP, like I don't think they've been able to translate that as well as Steve did last year.
No, because everyone's replicating tennis. Everyone's replicating tennis to me. It's like we're pickleball, we're irreverent, we're trash talking. We've got exciting sideline commentary. You can have coaching on the sidelines. Like we're unveiling and showing like, I don't know, 5 to 10% of what we really could be.
Very little.
Yeah. And look, the APP streams, they look incredible. Like the Vox Sports stream from this weekend, amazing. ESPN, CBS Sports. But this was an off weekend where there was no PPA. And all anyone could see was a few streamed matches from the APP. They don't start streaming until, middle of the afternoon, and there's only one court. Yeah. So why not throw up iPhones on every single court? You've got people that are dying to watch. I can't understand why they want to capture only 5% of the total matches and broadcast 5% of the total matches. And I talked to a few employees there, and they said, well, our quality is really important to us. We have sponsors, we have a brand reputation, we have an image. We're not going to stream anything that isn't basically perfect quality. And I think that's a mistake. Do you think that's a mistake?
Well, I think it depends, right? Like if you want to go and stream a court number 5, then just throw up an iPhone, right? Like the cameras in the iPhone are insane nowadays. That said, I think if you're on center court or maybe even grandstand, you do want to keep some form of quality.
For sure.
That said, though, like, it is tough because when I go watch an APP stream and it's like, oh, the semifinals. It's like, okay, who the fuck won every other match? Like, I kind of want to know.
Exactly.
And pickleball brackets is already, like, hard enough to navigate itself if you're not, like, an actual pro that goes on it every weekend, So,
exactly.
Yeah, I think the storytelling, I think the key word would be the storytelling that MLP had last year.
Yeah, where is that in all of pickleball right now?
Yeah, that's I think what a lot of these companies should be focusing on, just having that good storytelling. Hey, this is what happened. First, second round, whatever it is, and we keep on moving on. And there's just none of that. It's like, oh, here you go, YouTube live stream semifinal Sincola against Monroe.
Exactly.
Okay, what the fuck does that mean? Who's Sincola?
And I don't know.
Love you, bro. Sorry, you know what I mean.
Damn, ouch. I don't know if the PPA did this on purpose, but did you notice in the last tournament, the mics were really hot on courts 2 and 3 that were being streamed. And so you heard for like 10 straight minutes, Leah Jansen talking trash on Christian Alshon. Talking trash on Christian Alshon on a court with Matt, Lucy, and Hayden. The mics were so hot. You could hear every single word. On one hand, I'm like, okay, that's really inappropriate because we're all Mizuno athletes. Like we shouldn't be talking trash on each other. And number 2, I'm kind of like fascinated by it, right? Like, and I don't know, again, I don't know if the PPA did this on purpose with the super, super hot mics, but there is just something so intriguing to not just talking trash on each other and people, but to hearing the conversations among the players or on the sidelines. So again, I'd be super curious if they did that on purpose with the hot mics all weekend.
Yeah, it'd be good to know, right? Because I mean, I don't know if you remember this or if you know about this, but I think it's like every PPA Cincinnati or whatever it is, there's always this guy that comes down naked and runs around the court. Have you seen that before? Not naked. He has like underwear on or something.
No.
You've never seen that before? It's like
I've seen the streaker.
The streak, yeah.
Oh, he's the streaker?
That guy.
Okay.
Yeah, that guy. So I don't know if that, like, do you think that is also, that could be like, made up, or do you think it actually happens naturally?
Oh my gosh. I think more streaking. We need more streaking. 100%.
I might do some of that.
Can we make it girls though, please?
Yeah, actually, please. We need a little more of that. Anyways,
all in favor.
Anyways, moving on. So tell me a little bit about the shuffle draft that you were talking about, right? So you obviously it's not a normal tournament, but it's not an MLP either. So if you want to dive into what the shuffle draft kind of looked like at the APP event, that'd be great.
Dude, it was sick. And to your point, like, how do we do a better job of broadcasting that information? Like, I had friends looking for more information on the shuffle and like having trouble finding it and understanding the path and the storyline. A lot of that is a lack of live scoring. But to talk about just how amazing it was Jenny Klitsch's idea, which she got from Rec Play. Like, what do you do when you have 4 people on a court? You'll do like a game with each person or a couple games with each person. And at the end of it, you're like, all right, who was the weak link? Who was the strongest? And that's basically the shuffle. So you're invited to play if you're ranked 1 through 16 on the tour. And then they'll put 4 pools of 4 players together. The 1 through 4 seeds are guaranteed in separate pools, and the rest of the players are randomized into the pools. So it's so intriguing because if you've got like, you know, I really benefited having in my first 2 pools 3 right side girls each pool. And I'm like, perfect, I'll play on the left, and I'm like comfortable in each scenario. And then in the finals, I ended up playing on the right with Megan Fudge. But basically 2 players from each pool advance. So if you have, like in my first pool, we had 1 player go 0-3, and then 3 of us go 2-1. So then it's determined by point differential, who won the most points. So in each pool, like people would get out, like Susanna Barr in our second pool got out by like 1 or 2 points, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I got out pretty comfortably from my first 2 pools, went into the championship round. And it's just so cool. It was such a fun concept. I think they're going to continue doing it. You know, it's something new too that they can sell to sponsors. I just think it was really creative and really fun. I mean, would you love to play in something like that?
Yeah, 100% I would. And honestly, props to you. You might have had the best single explanation of something I have ever heard.
Thank you.
Like if I was going to play a board game with somebody, I'd give you a call and be like, hey, can you explain this game to my friend? Because I don't know how the fuck to do this. That's awesome. No, yeah, but it sounds like a really good, like a really fun thing to do in a pickleball court because, yeah, we go out there and do it every day, right? It's like, hey, let's go practice. And then you do 2 out of 3, you move on, right? Then you play with a different partner. And so to do that in a pickleball setting, it would also not only be really fun, but it would feel homey almost, right? Because you do it so often.
We were laughing. Yeah, no, it was really friendly. I felt like in all the pools. The purpose of it was to determine who's the best player, who's the best male and female player on the tour. And I think that's the wrong purpose. I actually think it's who's the best partner, right? So we go back to MLP and being a chameleon. How do you be the best partner for whoever you're playing with at that moment?
Yeah.
And that's how I think of myself as a total chameleon with my partner, whatever they need. And I think Megan Fudge does a really good job of that as well.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And something in pickleball that goes very, very overlooked, in my opinion, right? When you talk about who's the best player, quote unquote, right? And everyone's like, "Whoa, it's Ben." It's J-Dub, it's Riley, right? But if you were to put any of those players in a different scenario than they already are, then it becomes a different story. And that's what most of us are doing, right? Like we don't play left side with the same player consistently. We don't play the right side with the left player consistently, right? We don't even play really any tournament consistently with anybody, right? But then you have somebody like Dylan Frazier that I feel like gets overlooked, right? Where he's doing... I mean, he won Masters singles as a major in singles.
Yeah.
He consistently hits quarterfinals or better in mixed doubles.
Yeah.
And then he's winning men's doubles on the right, yes, which is, you know, still a really good accomplishment. But he's also playing the left in mixed and doing extremely well, right? So it's like, okay, like, how do you value who the best player is in this case, right? And I think Dylan and I'm not saying Dylan's the number 1 player in the world, but I think he gets overlooked.
Sure.
Because he's playing the right side.
Yep.
Right. With
it all automatically disqualifies him, which is so silly. And I think Steve Kuhn had a remedy for this. Remember what his concept was for what was supposed to be MLP this year before the merger actually transpired? It was that we were going to have individual tournaments. Abutting all the MLP events, and you could not play with the same partner more than 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it would have been perfect. And then you really know who the best player is.
Exactly.
Because otherwise you want to make the argument that you want to know who the best team is. But now you're basically talking about, you know, the best player is Ben, and everyone takes Colin out of the picture. Yeah. Right? And it's like, okay, but they're the best team together. But then as you go down the list, it doesn't become about a team. And pickleball has always been about a team sport, right? And now it's just like, oh, that Ben's the best player in the world, which, you know, I agree he is. And then what's up with everybody else? We don't know.
How long do you think Ben and Colin will be playing together?
That's a good question. I mean, you know, this is kind of like what is it called? Locker room talk, right? Like a little bit of pro pickleball talk. And you don't know because they're brothers, right? I don't know, and I like Ben a lot, and I talk to Ben quite a bit, and he's helped me out with like certain things and like where to put weight on the paddles and stuff. But I don't know if he like really wants to keep playing pickleball for like, you know, another 5-6 years, you know, and he's made so much money already, you know, he might not even need to, right? So on one hand, on one side of the coin, it's, you know, they might play together until they both stop playing together, maybe, right? On the other hand, I think if you wanted to, in my opinion, if you wanted to keep on, winning and winning and winning,
And be with a different partner.
it might be with a different partner.
So you're saying ultimately it depends on what his motivation is.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you want to just make more money for the next 3 years and play with your brother, and you're still gonna do really well, just not win everything.
But you're going to be with your brother.
Yeah,
That's special.
Yeah, exactly. So if that's super meaningful to you and that's what you want to do, it's great. On the other hand, if you just want to keep on winning and winning, I mean, if there is a different partner now, there's definitely going to be a different partner in 3 years that could do that for you as well. But we don't know if Ben's going to be the best player in 3 years either. So I don't know. There's just so many unanswered questions, right? But what do you think?
I'm playing with my sister Natalie for the first time ever, June 26th in the San Clemente PPA.
Nice.
It'll be her debut pro tournament. And she was like, you can get a better partner than me, Jill. Like, just dump me, just leave me. Maybe I'll be ready by the October APP we're playing together. Like, I'm not ready. I'm like, I'd rather lose with you in qualifying than run through the quarters with someone else.
Yeah. I mean, if you have that special bond, so be it, right? I mean, if my brother played, I would 100% play with him. Right?
Isn't it wild how many siblings there are in pickleball? Like, do people really conceptualize or understand this?
Yeah, I mean, Mary, Maggie, Jackie, Jade.
The Johns.
Yeah. Who else is out there? George and J-Dub.
The Walker sisters.
Yeah, there's a fucking shit ton of
I
them.
know.
Yeah, and they're all pro.
Annalie and Lee, I mean, mother-daughter.
Yeah.
And they're all good.
Yeah, that is crazy, actually.
It's wild. There is definitely like a type of telepathy that happens on the court with a sibling. And I swear it is so funny to me how we develop with complementary skill sets. Like my sister only likes to play the right. I'm like, okay, perfect. I'll play the left.
Yeah.
She likes to attack a lot. I like to counter. I'm like, okay, perfect. Sounds good. And I swear you see that across all of these like siblings and familial relationships are these like telepathic complementary skill sets. It's really interesting. It's really fun. And I think it's an aspect of pickleball that, again, like could be showed better on streams and talked about and storylines.
Yeah, 100%. I think at some point it'd be really cool, number one, to have some form of pickleball documentary, right? Where you're inside of like people's lives, kind of like a tennis break point, right?
Yeah.
And obviously that took a very long time to get done, but it'd be kind of cool to see it. And then number two, kind of like a Housewives, but in pickleball, just put like, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 pros in a house and just see how they all deal with each other.
DJ's trying to get to live for free again.
Yeah, Steve. The bills are getting really expensive with the new baby, you know? I gotta do some stuff out here.
Wait, you have a baby?
Yeah, I have a 2-month-old baby girl.
How do I not know this?
I mean, I keep everything somewhat private for the most part. You know, like my fiance will kind of post and all these things, and every now and then I'll repost.
Congratulations, Daddy DJ.
Thank you. That said, like I try to just keep everything like, just kind of to myself, because I think at the end of the day, we're professional athletes. We're not, I'm not saying we're Carlos Alcaraz, right? But we're professional athletes, and so our life is already like pretty much out there.
Yeah.
And what we do is already everything for the public itself. Where for me, it was just important to kind of keep that privacy, of having a child just within like me and my families and my friends sort of thing. But there's been a couple posts here and there or whatever. In fact, the day after she was born, Pickleball.com made an actual like post, like a website, like a whatever, basically saying that I had a baby.
Wow.
I'm like, how the fuck do you know? Like, what? Yeah, I was getting like links around like, hey, like, what is this? You had a baby? And I'm like, oh, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, dude, she was born like last night.
Dude, if they were going to post that, the least they could do would be include your Amazon registry.
Yeah, something, right? The diapers are fucking expensive. So what are just some of your sponsors?
Yeah.
And how do you navigate that?
I am super blessed to have incredible sponsors. And actually, to answer a part of your question from earlier, my advice to pro players would be have an amazing agent or an amazing attorney, but don't rely on them to do your lead generation. That would be my number one piece of advice is like, go out and ask for it. Like, go out and show value. Like, I worked with Mizuno for a year before they paid me $1. I loved the product. There's nothing wrong with establishing relationships with products you believe in. I did the same with ProBand, my arm bandit that I use. I loved their product. Then I went to them and said, I love your product. Can I create some content? Like, that's a great way to get started. Like, create content. Don't ask for anything in return, and align with brands you believe in. every brand, and there weren't many of them, but that I aligned with more so due to a financial element last year, where I kind of liked the product, but the paycheck was going to be great or XYZ, like that didn't work out great. And I'm so happy that going into this year, all of my sponsors that I align with, I like 1000% believe in. So be product driven would really be my advice. So I work really closely with ProBand, obviously, Mizuno shoes, Hestacore grips. Oh my gosh, I think you're working with them too. Best grips in the freaking world.
It took me a while to get kind of acclimated to them though. Like I thought it was kind of weird at first. And I was like, okay, like it's not a tennis grip, right? Like it feels a little weird. And then like when you play with it and you hold it and it gets like kind of soft and kind of like a pillow-ish and it molds into your hand, you're like, fuck, this is pretty fucking legit.
I love it so much. And then really blessed to have just signed a long-term deal with a paddle company. I've been on this paddle quest. I've tried the Gen 3 Yolas. I've tried the Engage Pursuit Pro. I've tried the Gearbox. I mean, I've tried like literally a dozen paddles in the past 60 days. And I'm signing with Gamma Pickleball.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How long is that deal for? Long term?
Yeah, it's a long-term deal. I'm going to support not just their paddle, their bags, their balls, other training equipment, grips. They're in Dick's, Target, Walmart, huge big box retailers. And I think my favorite part about working with them is they're a really ethical company. They're really value-oriented. They can build the most powerful paddle in the world if they wanted to and bypass all testing equipment. There hasn't been a lot of innovation, true innovation, DJ, in paddles in the past year and a half. There's just been methodology to bypass the existing testing technologies.
Yeah.
And they won't do that. They purposefully have built paddles that have been amazing paddles. I'm playing the Airbender. And they're doing that really value-centered and supporting like Duper, they're sponsor of Duper, they're sponsor of NPL. They're just really active in the community. And I love their Chuck ball. I don't know if you've tried their ball.
I actually haven't, no. But, I mean, I heard pretty good things. Like, I don't know if you know this, but every now and then I'll drill with Steve Dawson. And he's not a believer of, like, bring 1,000 balls and, like, repetition stuff. Like, he's like, bring one ball.
I love that.
And then just, like, if you miss, go get it. So, you don't have to go get it if you never miss, sort of thing.
Oh, I love that.
And he's funny enough. Like, I'll be like, hey, Steve, like, I'll bring like 3 Vulcan balls. And he's like, no, I got balls. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And he'll just bring out like a fucked up Franklin. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And he's like, it's just a ball. Who cares? Just dink. And then like the next day it might be a Chuck. The next day is like a neon or like a red Dura or whatever. And I'm like, what is going on, man? He's like, just hit the ding. It doesn't matter. I'm like, okay, sounds good, bro. Like, it is what it is.
I love that. My wife, Kristen, tells a story pretty similar to that where this master golf instructor was demonstrating putting and how to make a 5-foot putt. And so she putts and she makes it. And then she goes, okay, what if I throw a bunch of quarters, trash in my pocket, change onto the line of the putt? And then she makes the putt and she makes it again. She's like, put a pure stroke on it. You'll make the putt.
Yeah.
So I think about that with the ball analogy. Like, I'm a little bit similar to that too, where I'm like, okay, what's in my bag? And I usually end up playing with one ball just because I have one ball.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, it makes sense. It does make sense. So what are some of the things that you've been doing this year? I know you have a podcast. So if you want to give a little quick shout out to your podcast.
Sure. It's called This Pickleball Life. I host it with my wife, Kristen, aka K-Dubs, TPL for short. And you can check it out wherever you consume your podcasts.
That's awesome. Do you have it on Apple Podcasts too? Do you do it on Buzzsprout or what do you do it on, actually? Where do you host it?
It was called Riverside FM. And then I think that got bought by Spotify Podcasts.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Sounds good. And what does your setup look like?
In a room in our house.
Nice.
A little nook just off of our kitchen. So
Little
it's
corner.
all homegrown. It's a little corner of the house.
That's the best. Are you recording with it like a nice like 4K camera or are you using your phone?
No, we use our phone. We're super lazy. We used to try and film in like 4K cinematic and we couldn't get it off of the phone onto a computer. So now we just like film with a regular old iPhone on video.
Dude, that's awesome. That's the best way to do it. What are your thoughts on, and I know people don't believe in this or whatever it is, but what I actually found is I'm playing pro pickleball, right? And I train and I do my fair share of weightlifting and all this stuff. But what I actually find that helps my game that I've been doing lately is teaching a couple lessons a week.
Interesting.
Because the more time I spend on court, the more time that my brain is working on the game itself. So whether I'm working on somebody else or working on myself, you know, I'll be saying something. I'm like, oh shit, that was really good. I'm gonna apply it to myself. Or sometimes I'll be like, hey, just don't listen to that. That was all bullshit, right?
What do you charge per hour?
Right now, 125.
Wow.
What do you charge?
$3.50 an hour with a 2-hour minimum.
$350? Damn, good for you. Yeah, see, I just do it because I love doing it so much.
Well, Travis is $500 an hour with the 2-hour minimum.
500.
Yeah, because you price it at if you want to do it or not. You know what I mean? Like, I don't love teaching individuals. I like doing big, pretty much invite only camps. You know, a couple times a year. I don't really want to teach individual lessons, so you've got to price it accordingly to what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Yeah, I just love doing it, and I figure that if I do it, let's say 200 an hour, which would be like 400 to 2-hour minimum, like I wouldn't get enough lessons myself. You know, if you do, that's fucking awesome. I love that for you. I just don't think I would. So at 125, I'm like, okay, it's still a pretty good like hourly rate, right? On top of what we're making playing pro pickleball.
Dude, I would pay that to pick your brain on stuff. Sign me up, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
You got any availability later?
But honestly, like just like I was saying, like for me, just being out there and just kind of talking about the game, whether it's with a 4.0, 4.5, or a pro, like it just helps develop your game so much.
I could not disagree more.
Yeah.
Like that's another reason. Like when I step out on the court and I teach, like as soon as I'm making contact with the ball, I'm like looking up to watch my students. And I find that it's totally distracting. I'm 100% focused on them. My form is slipping, but I do something else that I think has helped me tremendously, which is I play pickleball in my head. So like if I'm folding laundry, I will hit like, you know, cross court forehand dinks. I will Ernie. I will work on my returns, but it's in my head.
Yeah.
And I met a girl once and she was 25. She was playing on the LPGA Symetra Tour. She had to take a year off because she had a form of leukemia, and she lived in a hospital bed for a year. And she told me that every day for a year, she would play 36 holes of golf in her head to stay sharp. And that when she got out of the hospital and she got her health back together and she stepped out on the golf course, she felt like she was better than before she went into the hospital because she had been spending so many hours a day playing in her head. And your brain is wired as such that you can't really perceive a difference between your reality and in an imagined reality. They've done a ton of studies on this. Yeah. So if you have this imagined reality where you're playing and you're practicing things you really want to work on, that will improve your performance. Play in your head. So I get a lot of questions from our podcast listeners like, I'm injured. I'm going nuts. What should I do? I said, play in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And there's something to be said. Like when I was playing tennis and you have these like 30 seconds, whatever it is to serve, right? Like you're thinking like, okay, this serve is going to go to this spot and then it's going to open up the court and I'm going to look for a big forehand cross court to the open court. So that's basically playing tennis in your head. You're just about to do it on the court, right?
Exactly.
So I think it goes a long way. Like I think you're right. Just thinking about it, doing it over and over again, playing in your head. Honestly, like another thing that I think people should do more often is hit against a wall.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's a little goofy, looks a little weird at times, but I mean, you only need like 15 minutes, right? You just go hit like 100 back in flicks, and that's a bunch of reps, and you can go home. You know, so that's another big thing. What are some of the, let's change a little bit from that, but what are the biggest differences that you find between APP and the PPA?
Wow. I think the APP, I think I candidly, while I was playing on the PPA last year and was a gold card holder, I think I undervalued and underestimated the APP. I think they had a little streaming blunders early on, and maybe they got a little bit of a rap as, not being cool. They don't play the right rap song or popular pop song timed perfectly to a cool video of their star players doing really cool trick shots. Like, they're methodical. They move a little slower, but they're a profitable business. They're thoughtfully run. Their vendors are really happy with them. Their sponsors are really happy with them. They pay within 48 hours of me finishing event. I have a payment in my bank account. They're honorable. They're super like good vibes, right? Like when I'm there, I feel happy. I think the players are happy. There's a camaraderie, and it's a healthy ecosystem where they've got amateurs, pros, senior pros. They cater to the collegiate players as well. So they've got this really wide breadth of kind of like a healthy ecosystem of people mingling together. They have referees for all of their matches. They had 69 referees in New York. So if you're a 3-0 match, you have a referee.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. From 3-0 to 6-0 players, your court is going to have a ref. So I'm so impressed with what they're doing. The streaming looks absolutely incredible. Like I said, on ESPN and CBS and FS1. And that's been really eye-opening to me. The prize money, it's just been a really eye-opening experience kind of going back to that tour. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did, for sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I only had good things to say about APP itself, right? I mean, I spent probably like most of my 2021, 2022 playing APP itself. So I only have good things to say about them.
Ken comes up to all of us. He's like, "Are you happy? Are you good? Like, how can we be doing better? Like, give us feedback." It's really refreshing.
Yeah, it is. No, I agree. Well, fuck, that's cool. I'm glad you're happy there for sure.
You.
Yeah, I'm having a good time in PPA itself. My only thing now, it's like it's getting so difficult to win matches.
Yeah.
Like so
qualifiers
difficult.
are hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I played one qualifier in mixed this year, and mixed is not my strongest suit. I think it's just men's doubles itself. But I had to play one, and I didn't even go through the qualifiers itself. Like I
that
lost.
was with Cass Hogue.
Yeah, it was Cass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just getting really difficult, right?
Yeah.
And then men's doubles, I tend to go like quarters or semis sometimes, stuff like that. So I just think it's getting really hard. So it would be nice every now and then if tournaments were like a little bit easier, like it was like 2 years ago. Just because I love the competition, I like getting better and all this stuff. But it's like we do it so often that when we got there and compete every weekend, or most weekends, honestly. And you're just getting thrown into the wolves like first or second round, and you're just like grinding for an entire week, and it can get a little taxing.
No, I totally hear you, and I think it's really interesting when I hear of some players signing with, the PPA to be exclusive, and I'm like, what are you signing for? A really small sum of money right now. You're an up and coming player, and they'll go, the exposure. I'm like, the exposure to lose first round or second round to Ben and Annalie and maybe be on like a court 3 stream. Like, what do you mean exposure? So I think players need to start really thinking critically with where they play versus what looks glitzy on social media.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, a lot of it is what they want to show the world, right? So there's so many people here in San Diego, I'm not gonna mention any names or whatever, but all they want to do is get signed.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't even matter.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like it doesn't even matter to them if it like, and obviously this is just like what I think, and I also know of a couple deals that they didn't really get offered like anything.
Yeah. Well, also none of us could have imagined a year ago that pickleball would look like this, that there'd be this much money in it, attention in it, this much opportunity. None of us could have predicted this. So who's to say we can predict what's going to happen in 1 year from now? With that said, what do I value more than anything? My freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally get it. Totally agree. But yeah, I don't know what's in these people's heads when they're like, oh, like I'm a PPA contractor pro. Like, guess what? Like you'll never head. And even if it's MLP, like it doesn't matter which store it is. You'll never hear J-Dub be like, hey man, I'm a PPA contractor pro. Like it's good that you have it. It's great, but maybe just like, try to put your emphasis in life somewhere else.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. But then again, if you want to go sign, with whatever it is, then do it. If that what makes you happy, then so be it, But props to everyone that gets signed, that said. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, so that said, if there's anything you want to talk about, I'm opening up the pod to yourself, so let's do it. Let's go.
Let me look at my notes.
Yeah, let's go.
I think I took some notes.
We got all the time in the world. Just
let's go.
That's all I had for you.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, let's go.
So there was obviously this, I think it was the Minnesota indoor where you threw the paddle. And, I think you're like one of the absolute nicest guys.
Thank you.
On tour.
Yeah.
And like just one of my favorite human beings.
Thank you.
It's true. And there have been a few times in your career, probably similar to me, where you get this like bad boy rap.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like lean into that a little bit, or do you feel like you've tempered aspects of your personality on court? Because I need more DJ Young finger wagging in my life.
No, that's a really good question. Yeah, so there's been a couple times here and there, like the Minnesota one where I threw my paddle, but I definitely do tamper with that, where I'm not finger wagging anymore. I'm not talking shit anymore. I'm not really like staring people down anymore. And honestly, like it's not that I'm doing it on purpose. I think it's just like growing pains of life.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, like you're evolving and you feel like that wasn't how you were playing your best pickleball. Like you want to play your best pickleball, so your personality's changing? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily, because honestly, like, I don't know if I fully discovered what my best pickleball looks like. You know, like I got really buff for a little bit and I've been really skinny. You know, I finger wagged, I've said nothing, I've been quiet, I've yelled, you know, so I don't know what the perfect combination is. If I knew, I'd probably be the best in the world, you know. But that said, I think it's just, I'm a different person when I was 21, right? So 21, I was like, I want to fuck everybody up.
Yeah.
I don't care about money.
That was the DJ I met.
Yeah, it's like I don't care about who you are. Like fuck you. Like all these things, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't even care if you don't look my way. Now I'm way more relaxed now.
Yeah.
I'm
empathetic.
Empathetic.
In
like,
a better mental state.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I'm actually like I think being unhappy it's more common than being happy nowadays. But that's it. I do feel happy.
And it shows in people's pickleball.
Yeah.
Like some top pros. I'm like, oh my God, you are so unhappy. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And that's probably what it felt like to me when I was back then. I'd be like finger wagging and stuff, but then that's only if I'm winning. But then when I'm losing, I'm like maybe even quitting, right?
Yeah.
Where like now, I'm pretty happy at all times, which goes a long way. So whether I'm losing or winning or whatever, I'm like, like fucking life moves on. Like I got a child at home. I got my fiance at home. Like I still get a really good paycheck. I get to provide for everybody. Like there's so much more in life than just pickleball itself, So I think it's just, I'm just a different human being than I was 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm not saying I'm never going to do it again, right? But now I'm just like, somebody else. I mean, I'm like, whatever. Like, and also like there's a little bit of I mean, maybe like a little bit of superiority in some extent too. Because I think
like if they get you worked up, you're almost giving them power.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear you.
And then other times, I've always like I did Krav Maga for a long time and I fought a little bit and stuff. Nothing professional or anything like that, but I'm like decently aware of like, what could happen if anything, was to go down. And so, when there's like somebody that's like 5'8", 145 pounds, like yelling at my face, and I'm like 6'2", doing Krav Maga like for 3 years, and then fucking like 220 pounds, it's like, dude, like sit down, bro. Like, what are you doing? So that's kind of how I view it. I just don't entertain it.
Yeah.
But that's like how if like, like Conor McGregor wouldn't entertain me. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I see it. So.
And I think when people criticize certain players for being like boring to watch, you also have to remember like, hey, that might just be the way they play their best. Like, do I want everyone to have insane personalities and to mic up the players? Yes, that's what's best for the sport, for growing viewership, for keeping audiences engaged. Can I expect everyone to play like me? No, and they shouldn't. And it's funny because like I think I still struggle with when do I play my best? Is it when I'm super chirpy, like with Brandon French and MLP, or is it when I'm really quiet and calm and like more like predatory? Is it when I'm like laughing with my opponents and interacting with the crowd? Like, is it a blend of all of those things? Is it just you got to dance with the girl that you brought that day? Because you wake up different every day.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, if we all figure that out, we'd all be, top 5 in the world. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure just like you would believe that you're, the best player in the world when you're playing well is like how I believe it when I am, right?
Yeah.
And I think the toughest battle for all of us is figuring out how to bring that player, / person out of us,
Yes.
And we just haven't done it yet, unfortunately. So, but what other questions do you have?
Look at my handy dandy
Really
list.
good question, though. I like that.
Thank you. I do what I can.
What made you want to start the podcast, by the way?
Honestly, we have a really good friend, Ben, Ben and Emily. They're a couple, and they're like, you guys should start a podcast. Like, this is a really cool pickleball journey that you're on, going from, CEO of a technology company in this corporate background to like losing your mind and wanting to play pro pickleball, like capture the journey.
Yeah.
And I was like, no.
No, we're not doing it.
I am like a private person. I definitely can't compartmentalize that. Like, that's my nightmare. And he was like, you got to do it. And so I was like, okay, fine. And Kristen's really tech savvy. And, so we did our first couple episodes homegrown. And Ben said something that was really interesting. He said, you're going to feel like the first couple episodes, maybe the first 20 episodes, that you're talking to yourself. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, there's going to be this change. And you're going to feel like you're talking to a whole community of people.
Right. If you're getting 4,000 views consistently, you're talking to them.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what happened. Yeah. And it's now like literally my favorite thing to do. And I love it when I go to an event and someone comes up and says, I listened to your pod. I bought this product. It's helped me so much. Thank you for recommending it. Like Ketone IQ, one of my sponsors. Or, oh my God, I love this segment when your cat came in soaking wet, which like happens more than you would care to admit, or like brought home a dead lizard or a live lizard that we have to go chase. So it's a really cool way to interact and connect with people. And I'm really happy we did it. What made you want to start conversations with DJ?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have a family friend now. His name is Rich Summers. He's really big into real estate, and we happen to be
one of your
yeah, one of my guests. And so, I went out to his podcast, which, it came out really good and got a lot of views. And, we've done a bunch of dinners together. So basically there'll be like 10 of us at a dinner table, and it's all family. And then we'll just like fire each other questions back and forth for like 3 hours, and this happens to be, he happens to be really successful and super smart guy. And one night he was like, dude, like, you should start a fucking podcast. And I was like, you think? And he's like, yeah, dude, what we're going to do is you're going to come to mine. You're going to see what it looks like. We're going to get it done. You're going to be really good. And then you're going to start your own. And I was like, fuck it. Sounds good. So I went over. I did it. I enjoyed it. They showed me all the equipment, all the cameras. Like Nick, my homie right here, it's actually like a guy that he has too.
Okay.
He has a different guy. And I was like, I'm going to get myself a Nick, So I got Nick here.
I have a Kristen.
Yeah, you have a Kristen. Exactly. And so, and then I was like, okay, well, I need a fucking logo. And so I hit up my dad. And he was like, okay, here. And he made this. Dad. Yeah, that's awesome.
Your dad's the man.
Yeah, it was like 1 hour later. And then I was like, okay, let's do it. So we found this spot, me and Nick. And honestly, it was like a 48-hour thing. And then we just got it done. And
why'd you move so slow? 48 hours?
Yeah. What is that thing that Didi said? That Rich says? He says,
money loves fast.
Money loves speed. And I'm an action taker.
Yeah,
it's the best.
It does.
But yeah.
So let me ask you this. On your pod, how do you balance, like you said earlier, like the locker room talk, right? Because we see podcasts in pickleball where it's just like pro gossip. And I told Kristen, I said, look, if we start this podcast, I'll go insane. And I don't want to do this. Just talk locker room talk. Oh, gossip. And this person said this at this person. This person said this and did this. And kind of organically, our podcast ended up being a lot of really controversial topics because I was personally involved in them, like all the Paddlegate stuff, the player collective, the merger, like those were things I was like very intimately involved in. So it's part of like my pickleball journey. So I ended up talking about, and we end up talking about a lot of really hot button topics, but it's not like we aim to talk locker room gossip. So how do you balance on your podcast and in your business like the touchy subjects that people want to hear about and gets viewers, but also like, is that really where you want to go? Like being a gossip monger?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, to me, it's pretty easy. I don't feel like I talk about gossip itself that much. I don't really care to do so. And like first and foremost, like, we were speaking, about 2 hours ago. It's like this podcast is obviously it's my podcast, but I want to make my guests look good, right? So a lot of it comes down to a lot of things that you guys want to talk about, right? I want to give you a platform to share your story, to talk about some things that, well, in your case, you could do it because you have your own podcast with most people don't, right? So it's like they want to come on and there's things that they want to share. Some of them are drama, some of them are not, some of them is a life story, And so to me, it's easy because I'm just providing everyone, right, with a platform to where they're just they can freely speak, and it's going to go on YouTube, and it's, it's up to them whether they want to, say something that's controversial or not,
inflammatory or not, it's up to them.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm really easygoing, so I'm never going to try to like make you look bad or make any guest look bad.
I don't know. I think you got to make a change. I think you got to push more. You got to get your guests a little uncomfortable. Like, I love podcasts where you can like feel how uncomfortable the guest is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I sometimes feel like when I have a guest on our pod, which is pretty rare, like I'm not going to let them dance around a question. I'm like, sorry, you kind of like didn't answer that. And I like push and prod a little bit.
Interesting. I mean, I might, but I also think, like your podcast is more of a host co-host, right? Even though both of you are equally invested, right? And probably. But mine is more of a host guest, right? So every single podcast that I do, even though it's in the same spot, same line, same Nick sitting down in the chair, like they're all different, because we all talk about different things. Some people want to talk about, like the dating in the pickleball world. Some people want to talk about, their.
Oh, in addition to the siblings, we never talked about like Lauren Stratman, Julian Arnold, like the actual like people dating who play or are married, like Megan Fudge and Ryler, like even though they don't play together. That's another aspect of pickle we didn't.
Yeah, exactly, which is great. But that said, right, like if I get Golden Tate on the pod, which I did, and ex-football player, like there's nothing for him to bring into the pod that is like pickleball drama related.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's my place to be like, hey man, let's talk about how this person cheated on this person on the pro tour. It's like, so I'm not gonna be that person. So that said, like, to answer your question, like it's really easy for me to balance it out because there's almost like nothing to balance out.
Yeah.
No, but well, thank you so much for coming. This was awesome. Super happy to have you. And shout out to your podcast, shout out to your wife and all your sponsors. And if there's anything else you want to say, go ahead.
No, keep crushing it. I love everything that you're doing. Congratulations on having your first baby.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deej.